In the quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of Lagos, the air smelled of frying bean cake, a scent that hung over the small, tin roofed home of Nnenna Okafor. Nnenna was a single mom whose life had been riddled with hardship, yet she carried herself with the determination of a lioness. Each day began before dawn, her hands working tirelessly to prepare her akara, the only source of livelihood. She had to feed her daughter, Ada, to keep her in school. Ego, hold on, Nina called to her neighbor and best friend. Ego, as she wiped her hands on her tattered wrapper. Ego had just arrived, her bright yellow blouse a stark contrast to Nena's faded clothing. Ah, Nena, you're always busy, oh," Ego said with a chuckle, sitting on the wooden bench by the Akara stand. Ego was the one person Nina trusted with her thoughts and fears. Every day after the morning rush, they would sit together sipping pap, and Nina would recount her worries about Ada's future. "She's my only hope," Nena said with a wistful smile. "I know Ada will make me proud one day. Ah, all these sufferings won't be in vain." Ego nodded, but something flickered in her eyes, something Nena never noticed, a quiet unease that brewed each time Nena spoke of her daughter's potential. Ada, a sharp and beautiful young woman, was the joy of Nena's life. Despite their poverty, Ada excelled in her studies, often staying up late into the night with a candle stopped to prepare for exams. Nena would sit by her side watching her with a mixture of pride and longing. "I must finish school, Mama," Ada said. "When I graduate, you will never have to fry akara again." Those words were the balm to Nena's weary soul. She believed them with every fiber of her being, even as she battled the relentless grip of poverty. But one evening, as Nena sat with Ego outside their home, frying the last batch of akara for the day, a man approached the store. He was tall, well-dressed, and exuded an aura of wealth that immediately set him apart. "Good evening," he said, his voice smooth. "I'm looking for Ada." Nena blinked in surprise. "You're looking for my daughter? What for?" The man smiled. "My name is Chidi. I've been seeing her at the university. She's quite brilliant. I wanted to speak with you, ma'am." Ego's eye widened as she exchanged a quick glance with Nena. Chidi continued explaining his admiration for Ada's intelligence and determination. It was clear he was not just a passing admirer, he was smitten. When Ada returned home that night, her mother shared the encounter and her daughter's cheek flushed with embarrassment. "Mama, he's just a friend," Ada insisted, though her eyes betrayed a spark of excitement. Ego, however, seemed unusually quiet that evening. As Nena walked her back to her house, she wouldn't she couldn't help but notice her friend's first smile. "You are lucky, Nina," Ego said suddenly. Ada is a good girl, but be careful. These rich men don't always mean well." Nina laughed lightly. "Ego, you worry too much. My Ada knows what she's doing." But as she laid in bed that night, a gnawing unease crept into her thought. Could Ego be right? Months turned into a whirlwind of events. Chidi was not just wealthy, he was one of the richest men in Lagos, the heir to a sprawling empire. His relationship with Ada blossomed, and before long he proposed. Nena couldn't believe her luck. She watched with tears of joy as her daughter married into wealth, moving into a mansion that seemed like a dream. Ego was by her side at the wedding, smiling and clapping, but her eyes were dark full of something unspoken. When Ada invited her mother to live with her and Chidi, Nena's life changed overnight. She left behind her Akara stand, trading it for the opulence of a life she had never imagined. The mansion was a palace with marble floors and chandeliers that glittered like stars. Ada showered her mother with gifts, ensuring she wanted for nothing. But not everyone celebrated Nina's newfound fortune. She's forgotten her roots, Ego whispered to another neighbor one evening, living like a queen now, as if she didn't suffer with the rest of us. Jealousy coiled around Ego's heart like a snake. She couldn't bear to see Nina's joy, couldn't bear the praise that brought to her mother. It wasn't fair. One fateful day, Ego visited the mansion under the guise of friendship. She brought in a basket of fruit and spent hours chatting with her. But behind her warm smile, Ego's mind was plotting. It's a beautiful house, so she said, her voice laced with envy. Ada has done well for herself. Nena beamed. She has. God has blessed me through her. But as Ego left that evening, she made a silent vow. Nena's happiness had to end. Weeks after Nena moved into her daughter's mansion, Ego's jealousy smeared into a boiling rage. She could no longer mask the bitterness that consumed her. It wasn't just about Nena's newfound comfort, no, it was the constant praise Nena heaped on Ada that stung the most. Every time Nena said, "My daughter is my greatest blessing," it felt like a dagger twisting in Ego's heart. She's forgotten that we suffered together, Ego muttered one evening, pacing in her modest one room apartment. Her mind churned with dark thought until an idea crept in, sinister and insistent. She would take matters into her own hands. The next morning, Ego wrapped herself in a brightly patterned Ankara wrapper and set out on a journey. She traveled to a village far from their neighborhood, where whispers of a powerful spiritualist has reached her ears. The spiritualist, a stooped old man with piercing eyes, sat in the dimly lit confines of a shrine. The air was thick with the smell of incense and herbs. Skull of animals lined the walls, and a pot shimmered over a fire, its contents bubbling ominously. Ego knelt before him. "Baba, I need your help. I have an enemy whose happiness must be taken away." The man studied her with unwavering intensity. "What has the enemy done to you?" "She has humiliated me, Baba. I want her to feel pain, to suffer as I have suffered." The spiritualist nodded slowly. "It will be done, but the price will be heavy." "I will pay it," Ego said without hesitation. The man instructed her to bring a piece of Nena's clothing, along with a few strands of her hair. Once the ritual is done, her life will crumble. Her greatest source of joy will turn into her greatest sorrow. Ego's heart thundered with dark excitement as she returned home, her mind racing with plans. A few days later, Ego visited Nina at the mansion, carrying a basket of yam as a gesture of goodwill. Her eyes darted around the luxurious living room, taking into the polished floors and golden accents with barely concealed envy. "Nena, you've done well for yourself," Ego said. "It's good to see you happy." "Ego, it's all Ada's doing, oh. She's such a blessing. I keep thanking God for her every day." As Nena excused herself to fetch drinks, Ego moved quickly. She spotted a scarf draped over a chair, one that Nena often wore, and slipped it into her bag. Moments later, she excused herself from the visit, claiming she had urgent matters to attend to. That night, Ego returned to the spiritualist with the stolen scarf and strands of Nina's hair, which had plucked from a comb she borrowed weeks earlier. The spiritualist began the ritual under the cover of darkness, chanting incantation in a language Ego couldn't understand. He placed the scarf and hair into a calabash filled with a strange herb and a liquid that smelled of iron. As the spiritualist chanted, he sprinkled ashes over the calabash and instructed Ego to repeat after him. "Her joy shall turn to sorrow, her pride shall turn to shame, her child shall be her punishment." Ego's voice quivered as she echoed the words, but her resolve was firm. When the ritual was complete, the spiritualist handed her a small vial of dark liquid. "Pour this near her dwelling," he instructed. The charm would take root and her life would begin to unravel. Not long after the ritual, Nina began to notice subtle changes in Ada's behavior. At first, it was small things, a sharp tone, a dismissive glance, but soon it escalated. Ada would leave the house without telling her mother where she was going, and when she returned, she barely acknowledged her presence. One evening, as Nena sat on the dining table waiting for her dad to join her for dinner, she heard her daughter's raised voice from the living room. Mama, must you sit there like a queen? Don't you see that I have a husband to attend to? You're always in the way. The words cut through Nina like a blade. She looked at Ada in shock, searching for a trace of the loving daughter she had raised, but all she saw was cold indifference. Ego, who still visited occasionally, played the role of the concerned friend. She listened to Nina's tears, offering hollow reassurances. She's probably just stressed, Nina. Ego said, maybe you should give her some space. Nina clung to those words, convincing herself that things would soon get better, but they didn't. One afternoon, Ada confronted her mother in front of the household staff. Mama, I think it's time you return to your old home. You are not needed here anymore. The humiliation was unbearable. Nina packed her belongings that same evening, tears streaming down her face as she left the mansion. She returned to her tiny, forgotten home, her heart shattered. She confided in Ego again, sobbing uncontrollably. I don't understand, Ego. That has changed so much. I don't know what I've done to deserve this. Ego held her friend, hiding the sinister glee that bubbled within her. It's not your fault, Nina. Sometimes children forget the sacrifices their parents make. But even as she said the words, Nina couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong. As she sat alone that night, clutching her rosary, a memory surfaced. Ego's laughter. Despite the warning signs of Ada's changing behavior, Nina clung to the hope that her daughter would return to the kind-hearted girl she had raised. After all, hadn't she sacrificed everything for Ada's future? So when Ada came to her humble home and apologized, pleading for her to return to the mansion, Nina didn't hesitate. The warmth and care Ada initially showed upon her mother's return was fleeting. Within weeks, the sharp tones and scratching words resurfaced. Nina began to notice subtle shifts in her responsibilities at the mansion. Mama, since you are home all day, could you start handling the kitchen? Ada asked casually one morning. Our cook has been slacking off lately. Though his tongue, Nena agreed without protest. She thought, this is my daughter's home. Helping out isn't too much to ask. But soon, one task turned into another. Nena became the housemaid, responsible for cleaning, cooking, and even tending to the sprawling garden. Mama, make sure you iron Chidi's clothes properly, Ada said one afternoon, dropping a pile of her husband's laundry at Nina's feet. He likes sharp grazes, and if you don't do it right, he will be upset. Nena swallowed her pride and set to work. Every grease of the iron felt like a scar on her soul. The emotional maltreatment testified as Ada's frustration with her life mounted. Chidi's business had begun to suffer setback, and he often took out his anger on Ada. In turn, Ada redirected her bitterness towards her mother. "You're so lucky to be living in this house," Ada snapped one evening as Nena quietly served dinner. "Some women your age are still in the village roasting akara by the roadside. You should be grateful." One day, Ada hosted a gathering for her wealthy friends. Nena had spent hours preparing food and setting the table, her back aching and hands raw from washing dishes. But when the guests arrived, Ada introduced her mother in a way that crushed her spirit. "This is Mama," Ada said with a dismissive wave. "She helps around the house." Nena felt the weight of humiliation settle on her chest. She had expected pride in Ada's voice, perhaps a mention of the sacrifices she had made. But no, she was something more than a helper in her daughter's eyes. The mansion, once a symbol of hope and comfort, became a gilded cage. One day she overheard two maids whispering in the hallway. Why does Madame treat her mother like this? One asked. Who knows? Maybe there is something wrong between them. It's none of our business, the other replied. Nina bit her lip, retreating to her small, sparsely furnished room at the back of the house. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her coarse hands. These hands had fed Ada, clothed her, and sent her to school. Now they were being used to scrub floors and wash plates. She thought of her friend Ego and longed for someone to confide in, unaware of the role Ego had played in her suffering. Life in the mansion was no longer merely comfortable for Nina, it became unbearable. Ada's frustration grew darker, and she no longer made any attempt to hide her contempt for her mother. One rainy evening, after Nina had spent the entire day scrubbing the floor and washing piles of dishes from a party, she sat down for a moment to rest her aching back. Ada walked in, her expression stormy. What are you doing sitting down at that bag? There's still the guest bedroom to clean. My daughter, Nina stammered, her voice weak. I have been working all day. Please, let me rest for a little. Ada's eyes blazed with anger. Rest? You think this is your village house where you can lazy around all day? You don't deserve to rest. Before Nina could respond, Ada grabbed her by the arm and dragged her to the back of the mansion. Rain poured heavily, soaking them both. Since you're too tired to walk, you can sleep outside tonight, Ada hissed. She shoved Nina out into the rain and locked the door. Nena pounded on the door, her tears mixing with the rain. Ada, please, I am your mother. But Ada ignored her cries, and Nina spent the night huddled under a small overhang, shivering and praying for strength. The next morning, Ada unlocked the door, her expression as cold as the rain that had soaked Nina to the bone. You look like a mess, she said with a sneer. Go clean yourself up and get to work. There is no time for sulking. Weak and feverish, Nina obeyed. She forced herself to scrub the floors, ignoring the dizziness that threatened to overwhelm her. When it was time for breakfast, Ada handed her a plate of leftover from the previous night's party, a mix of bone and scraps that the family dog had rejected. This is for you, Ada said with mock kindness. Nina stared at the plate, her stomach turning. Ada, why would you give this to me? I am your mother. Oh. And I've given you a roof over your head, haven't I? Ada snapped. If you don't like it, you can go back to your filthy roadside akara stand. With no other choice, Nena ate the scrap, each bite a bitter reminder of how far she had fallen. Ada's cruelty escalated further. One evening, after a particular heated argument with Chidi, she stormed into the kitchen where Nena was washing dishes. You think you're so perfect, don't you? Ada sneered, grabbing a nearby dish and smashing it against the wall. You are the reason I'm stressed out all day. I'm sorry, my child, Nena said, trying to calm her. Please let me. Before she could finish, Ada slapped her across the face, the sound echoing through the kitchen. Nena stumbled back, holding her cheek, her eyes filling with tears. That's what you deserve at that spot. Now clean up this mess. Nena silently gathered